Okay, let's unpack this. Sarcasm, it's woven into how we talk every single day. Little digs with friends, sharp wit in books, even in history.
It's everywhere.
And you're tuning in because, well, you want to get a solid handle on things quickly, right? Without getting totally bogged down.
Yeah.
So that's our aim here. We've gathered a bunch of information, looked at some articles, some notes, really focusing on how AI understands or doesn't understand human sarcasm.
Or tries to understand it.
Exactly. We want to really dig into the nuances, how we get it, why it's so tricky for AI, and what it tells us about how we connect.
There should be some moments along the way, I think.
Definitely hoping for some light bulb moments.
Our goal today is really to explore all those layers of sarcasm.
Right.
Look at what makes it tick, how our minds handle it, the hurdles for artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
and its role, which is subtle but pretty significant in our relationships.
It seems simple, but it's not.
Not at all. Surprisingly complex when you start peeling it back.
So let's get right to it then. We all think we know sarcasm when we hear it. But what is it, fundamentally? What are we actually talking about?
Well, at its core, sarcasm is a type of verbal irony.
Okay.
What's said is basically the opposite of what's really meant.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting. The word itself,
Yeah.
it comes from the Greek sarkazine, which means to tear flesh like a dog.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty intense.
It is. It kind of highlights that potential bite, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even when we use it playfully, there can be a sharp edge.
That tension, humor, and maybe a little aggression.
Exactly. That constant interplay.
And that's something that just clicks for us humans usually. But
Yeah.
how? How does that click happen when someone says, oh, fantastic weather during a downpour? What's going on upstairs?
Yeah, that really shows the gap between us and AI, doesn't
It
it?
does.
We humans, we intuitively use a whole range of clues. We listen to the tone. Is it flat, exaggerated, mocking?
Right.
We watch their face, an eye roll, a smirk. That says a lot. We think about the situation. I mean, does fantastic weather even make sense right now?
No, not in the rain.
And we pull on our shared understanding, social norms, past experiences with that person, all these little pieces.
That's way more than just the dictionary definitions of the words.
Oh, absolutely. Reading between the lines and then some.
You're reading the person, the situation.
Precisely. And a really critical part of this human skill is something called theory of mind.
Okay, theory of mind.
It's our ability to get that other people have their own thoughts, beliefs, intentions. To understand sarcasm, we often have to realize the speaker's real meaning is different, maybe even opposite, to the literal words.
Which AI just doesn't do naturally.
Right. AI usually deals with text, words at face value. It doesn't have that built-in grasp of context or tone or facial expressions that we just have.
So how it's said is almost as important, maybe sometimes more important than what's said.
You got it.
What are some of those specific clues in the way someone speaks? The verbal stuff we pick up on, maybe without even thinking about it.
Well, while the nonverbal stuff is huge, there are often linguistic hints too. A tone dripping with mockery or contempt, that's a big one.
Hard to miss.
Context, like we said, is vital. You hear, great job. After someone drops a whole tray of glasses, you need to know about the drop to get the sarcasm.
Otherwise, it's just praise.
Exactly. And then those nonverbals, how the voice pitches up or down, the stress on certain words, maybe drawing them out. And those facial expressions, eye rolling, smirking.
It really is a multisensory thing for us.
It is.
And it feels like there isn't just one type of sarcasm either. It comes in different flavors, doesn't it?
Good way to put it. Different flavors, Experts have sort of categorized them.
Like what?
Well, you've got self-deprecating sarcasm, mocking yourself.
Been there.
Right. Then there's brooding sarcasm. Might sound polite, but you can feel the annoyance underneath.
Ooh, passive-aggressive almost.
Can be. Then deadpan sarcasm delivered totally straight-faced. That one can be tricky. You've got polite sarcasm, which is like fake nice. And then the more obviously cutting types, obnoxious, even raging sarcasm.
Raging sarcasm, yes.
And maybe manic sarcasm, that sort of forced over-the-top cheerfulness hiding something else.
Manic sarcasm, I think we've all been there, like you said. So what's the point? Why use these different kinds? What are people trying to do?
They serve all sorts of social, emotional functions. Sarcasm can be a way to criticize, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently.
Yeah.
It can be a defense mechanism, avoiding vulnerability. It can be a way to make a sharp point indirectly. And of course, often it's just for humor, to lighten the mood, make a joke.
Or like an inside joke.
Exactly. strengthens bonds within a group sometimes. The type of sarcasm, the situation, who you're talking to, it all shapes the purpose.
It's amazing how much we communicate without saying things directly. What's actually happening in our brains when we're figuring this out? What cognitive gears are turning?
Several key things are going on. We mentioned theory of mind, understanding someone else's perspective, their intention.
Right.
We're also super sensitive to context cues, noticing when what's said just doesn't match reality.
The mismatch.
Yeah, the incongruity. And then there's the importance of shared knowledge, knowing social rules, cultural references, history with the speaker.
Gotcha.
All that background information helps us decode the intended meaning.
It's like a mental juggling act. And it's not something we're born doing, is it? How does this understanding develop as we grow up?
That's right. It's definitely a learned skill. Little kids, say under 5, they really struggle. They tend to take things very literally.
Don't spill the beans means literally don't spill beans.
Exactly. That ability to recognize non-literal meaning starts to show up around age 5 or 6.
Okay.
But getting the humor or the teasing part of sarcasm, that often comes later, maybe 8 to 10 years old. Even telling sarcasm apart from other kinds of irony, like situational irony, that develops around then too, 9 or 10.
So there are definite stages. What's a key milestone in that development?
A really crucial step is developing perspective taking. Usually starts around age 4. Being able to grasp that others have different thoughts and beliefs is fundamental to realizing a sarcastic speaker might mean the opposite of their words.
Makes sense.
And it's interesting. Kids often start using sort of formulaic sarcasm, like a well-timed, yeah, right, even before they fully get the concept.
Yeah, practicing?
Maybe. And then in adolescence, sarcasm becomes, a tool for more subtle meanings. Sometimes it's seen as witty or smart.
Right.
There's even some research suggesting a possible link between sarcasm use and creative thinking.
That's fascinating. And what about later in life? Does our sarcasm detector change as we get older?
Well, some research suggests that some older adults might become a bit more inclined towards literal interpretations again.
Interesting.
It suggests that maybe cognitive changes that come with aging can sometimes affect how sarcasm gets processed. But it's not just age, of course.
Experience matters too.
Hugely. Our experiences, social learning throughout life, just being exposed to sarcasm, seeing it used, helps us get better at understanding it.
And if someone really struggles?
For individuals who have difficulty, maybe due to developmental differences, things like speech therapy can actually help build that understanding.
So it's learned, it develops, it might change.
Yeah.
Which means it's probably not universal either. Culture must play a massive role here, right?
Oh, absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
Cultural norms, communication styles, they massively impact how sarcasm is used and, crucially, how it's understood.
So potential for misunderstanding.
Big time. What's a playful jab in one culture could be seen as really rude or just confusing in another. Cross-cultural communication can get tricky.
How so? What kind of cultural differences are we talking about?
Well, think about cultures that really value directness.
Okay.
They might find the indirectness of sarcasm just bewildering. Like, why not just say what you mean?
Yeah.
On the flip side, cultures that prioritize politeness, avoiding direct conflict, they might see sarcasm as inherently impolite, inappropriate.
Makes sense. Have researchers looked into this?
They have. They've looked at things like Hofstede's cultural dimensions, power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism versus collectivism.
Right.
And they've found links. For instance, some studies suggest people in China, which tends to be more collectivist and have higher power distance, might understand sarcasm less readily on average than people in the U.S., which is more individualistic and lower power distance.
So societies that are more focused on the individual, maybe flatter hierarchies, potentially more sarcasm?
That seems to be the general trend observed, yeah. Countries like the U.S., maybe Mexico too, which lean more individualistic, lower power distance, often show more sarcasm use compared to more collectivist, higher power distance places like China.
Interesting. Any other factors?
Even how much a culture values emotional restraint can matter. If keeping emotions buttoned up is important, the potentially negative vibes of sarcasm might make it less appealing or common.
So it exists everywhere,
Yeah.
but the frequency and interpretation vary a lot.
Exactly. You'll probably hear it quite often in English-speaking cultures, UK, US, but maybe less frequently or only in very specific contexts, in somewhere like Japan.
So bottom line, if you're interacting across cultures, be careful with the sarcastic quips.
Definitely tread carefully. Literal translations, they almost never work for sarcasm.
No kidding.
And those nonverbal cues, an eye roll might mean sarcasm here, but something totally different elsewhere. Cultural sensitivity is key.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. How does sarcasm actually affect our relationships? It can be funny, bonding, but also really cutting. That double-edged sword idea.
It really is. On the plus side, when it's shared, when everyone's in on the joke,
Yeah.
it can be fantastic for building rapport. Creates this kind of playful linguistic space, injects humor, makes tough situations maybe a bit more bearable.
Like a shared secret language sometimes.
Exactly. It signals closeness, shared understanding.
The dark side, the potential for harm is definitely there.
Oh, absolutely. It can slide very easily into passive aggression.
And over time, that erodes trust. It damages relationships.
Especially if it's misunderstood.
That's a big one. Misunderstandings are easy with sarcasm, and they lead to hurt feelings, confusion, arguments.
Yeah.
And even when the sarcasm is understood, the person on the receiving end might still feel mocked, belittled, or attacked, regardless of the speaker's intent.
So intention isn't everything. Perception matters hugely.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And relying too heavily on sarcasm, it can become a shield. It can stop people from expressing genuine emotions directly.
Hinders real connection.
It can, yeah.
It sounds like the type of relationship really dictates how sarcasm lands.
It does. Close friends, family, people who know your style have that history of playful teasing. Maybe more leeway there. It's seen as lighthearted.
But at work.
Risky. Can easily come across as disrespectful, unprofessional.
And with kids.
As we discussed, potentially harmful. They're still figuring it out, might internalize it negatively.
Even in romantic relationships.
Absolutely. Constant sarcasm can really chip away at intimacy, build resentment.
And what about the person who just completely misses it? Who takes it literally? What's the impact on them?
It can make them feel pushed away, excluded, like they're not in on the joke.
Right.
Leads to confusion, frustration, maybe even makes them question themselves, feel a bit stupid, like they missed something obvious. Lowers self-esteem sometimes.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Considering how much we rely on tone, context, shared history, what does this tell us about the fundamental nature of human connection itself?
That's a great question. It really underscores how much of our communication is beyond the literal words.
Right.
Our connections are built on the how just as much as the what, on shared background, unspoken rules, mutual understanding. Sarcasm, because it relies so heavily on these implicit cues, just throws into sharp relief how deeply social and contextual our language is.
So true understanding isn't just decoding words.
No, it's about interpreting intentions within this shared social world we navigate.
Which brings us neatly to AI. If humans find it this nuanced, no wonder AI has such a hard time. What's the core difficulty there?
Well, like we said, it's that literal processing. AI generally takes words at face value. It struggles to grasp that intended meaning, the one that's opposite to the surface words in sarcasm.
Because it doesn't have the context, the tone.
Exactly. Human sarcasm detection leans so heavily on context, tone of voice, social norms, things that often aren't explicitly in the text data AI usually works with. It can't see the raised eyebrow or hear the vocal shift.
Right. It's deaf and blind to those cues.
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Right.
And this makes tasks like sentiment analysis, figuring out the emotional tone of text, incredibly difficult.
Because sarcastic negativity looks like positivity?
Often, yeah. Sarcasm frequently uses positive words to convey negative feelings, and it lacks those clear positive or negative keywords AI is often trained to spot. It has to rely solely on the text itself most of the time.
Even with audio, it's hard.
Even with audio, picking up those subtle intonation changes that signal sarcasm. Still a real challenge for current models.
So basically, our current AI is still pretty bad at getting the joke.
Generally, yes. They have significant limitations with the subtleties. Context, tone, implied, meaning these are tough. Traditional sentiment tools often get it wrong.
How so?
They see positive or negative keywords and make a call without considering the irony. A sarcastic, "Oh, that's just great," after bad news might get flagged as positive feedback.
Which is completely wrong. Could lead to bad decisions if a company relies on that.
Definitely could lead to inaccurate conclusions.
So what are researchers doing? How are they trying to teach AI to understand sarcasm?
Well, there's been a progression of approaches. Early on, people tried rule-based systems.
Like if you see, yeah, right, it's sarcasm.
Sort of, yeah, based on linguistic patterns, but those are brittle, too rigid for how creative sarcasm can be.
Okay.
Then came statistical methods, machine learning, training AI on lots of text data to spot patterns linked to sarcasm. Better generalization, but designing the right features for the AI to look at was tricky. Then deep learning models inspired by the brain showed more promise.
Neural networks and such.
Right, capturing more complex patterns. And more recently, transformer models like BERT and GPT, they're really good at understanding context within text.
Those are the big ones now.
They are. And another really exciting direction is multimodal AI.
Right, you mentioned that. Combining text with other stuff.
Exactly. Trying to give AI more of the human experience by adding audio, visual information.
Like seeing the eye roll or hearing the tone.
Precisely. Taking in not just words, but maybe tone of voice from audio or facial expressions from video. The idea is a richer understanding of the situation, the speaker's intent.
So analyzing pitch changes, speaking rate, or looking at emojis.
All of that, potentially. Combining text sentiment with visual cues like emojis or audio features. But it's challenging.
How so?
Well, you need huge amounts of data that includes all these modes correctly labeled. And technically, processing and fusing that data effectively is complex. Plus, those nonverbal cues themselves can vary across cultures, adding another layer.
Still, sounds like the most promising path forward.
It holds a lot of potential, yeah. You know, what's really fascinating here is the parallel between how humans understand sarcasm in this multifaceted way and how AI models trying to replicate that are becoming more and more complex themselves. It really just highlights how sophisticated human communication is.
It truly does. And the fact that AI struggles with something so common, so everyday for us, it raises some important questions, doesn't it? Ethical ones, maybe?
Absolutely. Think about where AI is used now. Customer service, social media analysis, content moderation.
And everywhere.
If it consistently misunderstands sarcasm, that can lead to real problems. Businesses analyzing feedback might get a totally skewed picture if sarcastic complaints are missed.
Or seen as praise.
Exactly. And what about chatbots?
Oh, yeah. Imagine complaining sarcastically to a bot.
And it gives a cheerful, completely unhelpful response because it missed the sarcasm. Frustrating, right? Or AI monitoring online content.
Yeah.
It might miss genuinely harmful speech hidden in sarcasm.
Or worse, flag harmless sarcastic jokes as offensive.
Right. Misinterpretations can lead to bad data, poor decisions, damaging interactions, censorship, real-world consequences.
So getting sarcasm right isn't just a technical challenge, it's an ethical necessity for AI development.
I think you could definitely argue that.
Yeah.
Improving AI's grasp of these nuances is crucial for building trustworthy, effective systems.
We've talked a lot about AI and text, but let's circle back to us humans and those nonverbal cues. Just how critical are things like tone and facial expression?
Oh, they're absolutely fundamental. Often they're the primary signal.
More than the words.
Sometimes, yes. Tone of voice, the pitch, the emphasis, facial expressions, that tiny eye roll, the smirk, body language. These often scream, "Don't take my words literally."
Can you give examples of vocal cues?
Sure. Sarcastic speech might have a lower overall pitch than sincere speech, or exaggerated stress on certain syllables, maybe drawing out vowels. Oh, really?
Yeah, I can hear that.
Longer duration of words, maybe, or sometimes even reduced volume, like muttering sarcastically under your breath.
It's amazing how much information we pack into those signals, and all of that is just gone in plain text.
Completely gone. That's why figuring out sarcasm in texts or emails is so much harder. You lose all those layers of meaning.
Which brings us back again to multimodal AI. How exactly is it trying to bridge that gap? You mentioned combining sources.
Right. By processing text, audio, and visual data together, it aims for a more complete picture, closer to how humans experience communication.
So analyzing emojis in text.
Yes, or actual facial expressions in videos linked to the text.
And listening to the audio track.
Listening for those telltale pitch changes, the speed, the rhythm of speech from an audio recording. The goal is to fuse the sentiment clues from all these sources.
To get a more accurate read on whether it's sarcasm.
Exactly. Is the text positive, but the tone negative? Does the face show contempt while the words are polite? That kind of cross-checking.
Sounds like a massive leap forward. But you mentioned challenges earlier.
Still big challenges. Need those huge, synchronized, annotated, multimodal data sets. That's the bottleneck.
Data is always the challenge.
Often, yes. And the technical complexity of fusing the data streams effectively. And again, cultural differences in nonverbal cues. It's not simple.
But the potential payoff is huge.
Significant, yeah. More accurate, more robust sarcasm detection. Getting AI closer to that nuanced human understanding by looking beyond just the words.
So looking ahead, what's the roadmap? How do we actually teach AI to, get the joke more reliably?
It's definitely going to take a combination of things, a multifaceted approach.
Not just one magic bullet.
No. We need sophisticated machine learning, yes, but also a deeper understanding of context and constant human feedback.
So better data sets.
Crucial. Specialized data sets labeled for sarcasm with context. Continuing to push advanced deep learning models.
And feeding it more context.
Yes, finding better ways to give AI background, conversation history, who's talking, maybe even general world knowledge. And that loop of human feedback, annotation, refinement, it's ongoing.
Are there specific AI techniques showing particular promise right now?
Yeah, things like contextual embeddings from models like BERT help AI get word meaning from surrounding words.
Okay.
Attention mechanisms let the AI focus on the most important parts of the input. There's work on token-free models, better for messy, informal online language.
Interesting.
And multitask learning, training AI on sarcasm detection, and related things like sentiment analysis simultaneously. That can help too.
It's almost mind-bending. Is it possible? Could AI ever spot patterns in sarcasm that we miss?
That's a really fascinating possibility.
Right.
If you train it on truly massive data sets, text, audio, maybe across cultures, AI might identify subtle, consistent patterns in how sarcasm is expressed that humans just don't consciously pick up on.
Uncover hidden nuances.
Potentially, yeah. Analyze vast amounts of data and find correlations we haven't seen. It's an intriguing thought.
So what are the big research questions moving forward? Where's the focus?
Well, definitely developing more sophisticated multimodal AI that can reason across text, audio, visual data.
Integrating it all.
Yes. Also, giving AI better common sense reasoning and cultural context awareness. That's huge.
Making it less robotic.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Improving model interpretability so we understand why AI thinks something is sarcastic. That builds trust.
Black box problem.
Exactly. We need standardized data sets, better evaluation methods, and, like we've said, more research into how humans do it can guide AI development.
What's the ultimate end game?
Moving beyond just detecting sarcasm to truly understanding the intent, the social meaning behind it, for more seamless, natural human-AI interaction.
We have certainly taken a deep dive into the complex world of sarcasm today. It feels like we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
So to sum things up, what are the main takeaways for everyone listening?
Okay, first, sarcasm is complex for us humans, mainly because we rely so much on context and those nonverbal cues, tone, face, etc.
Right, it's not just the words.
Second, how sarcasm is used and understood varies a lot across cultures. Big potential for misunderstanding there.
Need that cultural sensitivity.
Third, it's that double-edged sword in relationships. It can bond people, add humor, but can also wound, erode trust, create conflict.
A powerful tool, used with care.
Exactly. And finally, understanding sarcasm is still a major hurdle for AI. It's driving a lot of cutting-edge research, especially in areas like multimodal AI.
So having unpacked all of this, you, our listener, should now have a much deeper appreciation for this fundamental, sometimes tricky part of how we communicate.
And also a sense of the challenges and frontiers in AI research trying to grasp it.
Absolutely.
Which brings up a really interesting final thought for you to chew on. So what does all this mean for how we communicate, especially in our increasingly digital world?
Good question.
And how might our own understanding, our own use of sarcasm, maybe even evolve as AI gets better at this? Or perhaps, if it doesn't.
Lots to think about there, indeed. Well, that's all the fantastic insights we have time for today on the Deep Dive.
This is DigitView.